Gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight, the Puerto Rican poppy, short and stocky, hit like Rocky. The most radioactive professional wrestler. Just reminding you to subscribe, like, and check out Stu's Wrestling Podcast. Mi gente, don't forget it. Ciao!
You're listening to Stu's Wrestling Podcast. It's time for British Wrestling's sharpshooter, your host, Stu Harmer.
I just got this feeling. It's episode 63 of Stu's Wrestling Podcast, and my guest, all the way from New York City, is the biggest wrestler ever, Franco Varga. Franco has wrestled around the globe. He's been in the UK. It was cool to listen to all his stories about some of his experiences across the world, and you'll get to hear about this at length. He's also the School of Morton heavyweight champion at the moment. Viewing figures have soared since he's been champion too. He's got in there with some of the biggest guys in modern times, with Brian Cage and the legends, the Barbarian, the Warlord. There's a funny story about that too. You'll get to hear about all this and more today on episode 63 of Stu's Wrestling Podcast with the biggest wrestler ever, Franco Varga. Enjoy. My guest this afternoon, this morning, where he is, all the way from New York City specifically, it is Mr. Franco Varga. How are you, Franco? How's things?
What's going on? Thanks. You left out, the biggest wrestler ever, Franco Varga, but I'll forgive it this time.
You can add that on, man. It's perfect. It's perfect for you to add on. I've got to say a big thank you to Justin Clapper putting us in contact with one another as well.
Yeah, cool. Definitely.
How are things, man, more currently, like the pandemic times? I'm going to speak to a bit more current than normal.
Yeah, no, I think it's more of everyone's kind of starting to kind of get an understanding of everything, and it's been a little more manageable from where we were months ago in America. And we're still, really high in the numbers. It's a stubborn country. We're very stubborn. But as far as wrestling and the pandemic goes, everyone's trying to remain socially responsible, especially myself. I took myself off a lot of shows, and I'm only doing a few ones like the School of Morton, down in Tennessee with Ricky Morton and those guys, because I believe in that product and I promised them that I'd help them grow that product. So yeah, Ricky's one of the people that have helped me throughout my career. So I felt like I owed it to him. And then as far as being socially responsible and not doing a lot of shows and telling people to just watch us online, that's kind of what everyone's doing, especially if I can speak for myself. That's what I've been doing.
That's cool, man. When did it all begin for you? I'm going to go right back. When did the career begin, the training? I think that'll be perfect.
Yeah. Oh, man. Wow. 2012. And I was playing American football, and at the time, a buddy of mine was like, hey, we're going to college. I never played professionally. I mean, I wish, but in college, and a buddy of mine was like, hey, I'm going to this wrestling thing. And I was like, whoa, WWE? And he's just like, no, independent wrestling. And I had no idea what independent wrestling was at the time. So I go with him, and it's just like a normal workout and a bunch of things. And I just fell in love with it that day, where I was just like, man, out of the 14 guys, I'm the only guy being asked, it was an awkward car ride back to campus, because he didn't even think, I didn't even know about it. And so maybe he would have been picked if I didn't know. I don't know, but we still talk to this day. But
at least you didn't fall out.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe it would have been him. I don't know. But out of the 14 guys, I ended up being the one picked for the school, the camp there. So I ended up training and falling in love with it. And then I knew I didn't want to play football professionally or anything like that. So that's kind of where a lot of doors started opening up for me when I kind of started going in 100%.
That's cool, man. That's cool. When was, how long was it until your first match?
Oh, boy. I'm glad they took the time with me because some guys are, a couple months and then a match, and it's, so I actually was almost 9 months in before I had the first taste, and it was a tag team match down in Amarillo, Texas. Legendary little, town for wrestling. But as far as everything else, not so much. But yeah, so it was a tag team match. It was a good learning experience, and that's when I knew like I got given the thumbs up to start doing singles matches, and I did, and it was off to the races. But yeah, 8-9 months is what I and then of course I continued to train. That made me want to train even more, and some doors opened to go to Puerto Rico for 3 months, and that was literally training every day and wrestling almost every day. So yeah, it was nonstop training. I always say learn something new every day. So yeah.
How was it putting together the moves, Franco, in the early times of the career and in the training? How was that for you?
No, I learned from someone who was trained by Les Thatcher. So like I what I feel a really good base. I got from just talking to people over the years and their training experiences and their schools and stuff, I got a really heavy dose of psychology up front in the beginning of my career, which I'm thankful for. That's just something that I've never been into all the flips and the things. I think I've always said, like, if 1,000 people are in the crowd, 1,000 people have probably been punched in the face before versus taking a Canadian destroyer, So I think if I can connect to them that way and then be the guy that they love or hate through a bunch of verbal communication and this being invested, I've always felt like that was always missing from when I remember wrestling as a kid and watching it with my grandma and watching her damn near take her slipper off and want to throw it at the TV, right? And I was just like, how come, what happened to wrestling? Like there's no reaction like that anymore. And that's kind of what I want personally to bring back to wrestling. Like every time I go in the ring, I want someone to want to take their shoe off and throw it at me. That's that mad. I want them to get that mad and forget, like, yeah, the cat's out of the bag and yeah, kayfabe and all that stuff, but I want them to still get that upset and want to throw a shoe at me or something. So like my grandma used to do at the TV when I was like, a 3-year-old, right? So that's kind of what I want for wrestling, my wrestling at least.
Who've been some of the guys that you've really, really enjoyed getting in there with? I'm sure there's been many. You can think off the top of your head some of the guys that standout matches that you've had and guys that you really appreciate getting in there with. If that's
some of the matches that I'm really, really proud of over the years. I mean, I've always been super impressed with my X Division title match with Brian Cage. He was the champion at the time, and it was a lot of hype, and it was just like, this is one of those matches where I was like, man, I hope I can hang, and I was like very proud of myself. He was very proud of the match himself, and just the amount of things that I learned from that match and the things that I can contribute to that match psychology wise. Like we had to pause and say, oh yeah, that is a good idea, Franco, let's do that. Like that's one of those matches that showed me on a personal level, like I belong. This is what I want to do. And this is, I'm going to keep learning and keep doing this. And then of course, like Carlito, we never got to work together in Puerto Rico when I was there. And I think he was, I don't think he was even wrestling at the time. Like taking matches. I mean, he's been wrestling a lot longer than I have, but I mean, like taking matches, but I worked for his dad for 3 months. So finally wrestling him in a damn near small sellout, because I think there was limited seats, like 250 or something like that in Ohio of all places. So that was another really, really fun one for me. Of course, like wrestling, some of my, Ricky Morton, wrestling Ricky Morton in Philadelphia was one of those where you just learn to relax, you learn what's important, and you learn to flow, instead of just putting everything together. Like a lot of us are taught now, putting everything together, and, it kind of takes away from the art. And like Ricky reminds me of like working with Ricky, working with Tuco Scorpio, working with those kinds of guys. This reminds me that like, let's preserve the art and like, let's go out there and give the people what they want, not what we want. I'd want to do 1,000 moves, but it doesn't make any sense and it stops being entertaining after a while. So that's kind of so working with those kinds of, those guys over the years, man, there's so many matches that I'm proud of. Yeah, I mean the Barbarian and the Warlord. That's another one.
Wow.
Big tough guys, you know. And I made the mistake of calling them, you know, Grandpa and stuff like that, just messing with them because we have a little bit of relationship, and they took it out of me in the ring. And there's this video out there. Warlord gives me a pretty stiff shot and goes, "How's that for an old man?" And I'm like, "Okay, let's calm down. You know, I'm sorry."
What did he say when you said sorry?
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, I'm just messing with you, kid. Let's go back to wrestling." But yeah, it was pretty hard. So I was like, "Oh God, I guess I pissed you off finally." But yeah, no, working with those guys over the years, I've been blessed, man. I've been blessed to learn from those guys that are not enough people. I've been in countless locker rooms where I don't know if it's out of fear or arrogance or what, but not enough people go up to those guys and say, "Hey, watch my match," or "Hey, what do you think of this?" or "Hey, what did you do this?" or what. Like, you gotta remember these guys were wrestling when people were getting turned away from buildings, people were flipping cars. You know, there was all sorts of. It was in a time where wrestling, they called it the golden age of wrestling for a reason. Like, people were making serious livings off of wrestling back then. Where I'm comfortable now, but I'm not driving a Mercedes Benz or anything like that, you know, like they were back in the day. So I think I like to learn from those guys because they had something that was, you know, being lost over the years. It's being lost, you know, it's trickling down into what, you know, I think we just need to preserve that information and that knowledge. So that's kind of what I try to do personally.
Franco, I think it'd be good now talking about backstage etiquette. The array of guys you've been in there with, what are your tips for new, promising, hopeful guys that want to come into the business? That'll be the next one, I think, the next progression for me to ask.
No, so I think, so my first, you know, my career, I'm almost at I'm already 8 years, almost 9 years now. And it changes after a while. Like, so a good example, like the first 4 or 5 years, I would just shut up and listen and yes sir, no sir, whatever, you know, it is. And then like, as of late, I've just been noticing like, I'll go sit in a corner. I've always been just, you know, find a corner, sit down and set up my stuff, blah, 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 do my thing. Where now I start to see more people gravitate, towards me and want to sit near me and want to ask me, and I found it to be weird. I'm like, why are you asking me? I'm just Franco Varga, you know, it changes over time. So like, your etiquette has to change over time. In the beginning, it's learn as much as possible, just be a sponge. And then over time, when people start to see you as that name, like the guy, I went to Australia and wrestled. It was my big debut there, and a lot of it was crazy that I even had a line, people to come meet me, and that's just something like, I guess I'm just humble, I don't know, but I've always been like, I understand someone coming to meet Hogan or something, you know, but I was like, these people are here to meet me, like I'm just like, this is insane. And then the guy I wrestled, he's just like, dude, I've been watching you for years. Been hearing about you for years. I watched The Road to Glory you just did in England, like yada, 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 yada. And I'm just like, oh man. So it changes where like, now I have to help this guy, you know, calm down. Well, for one, calm down, because we're about to go out there and wrestle and I don't want him to be all nervous, you know? And then for two, like, even if I don't think that I'm a big star in my own right to myself, you don't want to be, you know, an a-hole, or you don't want to be like, you know, passive about it. Cause I've been told like, you know, I met you and, you know, you were awesome, but you were super passive. And it just was kind of like, I couldn't read you. So I try to respectfully say like, okay, you know, it's just me. Let's just, you know, do the thing and let's just get through our stuff. And then we'll, you know, we'll do whatever you want, pictures, whatever it is. You know, I try not to treat people like fans. I try to treat fans like fans. Like, there's a whole different thing. But as far as etiquette in the locker room goes, like, it does change. And like, that would be my major advice to people, is like, know and feel the change and know when it's time to change. Like, sometimes I used to refuse to give advice for a long time because I felt like it wasn't my place. For a long time, And then I guess I people the wrong way because I felt like, oh no, Ron Simmons is here, or Ricky Morton's here, or these people are here who I would look out, for advice. Why come ask me? And it's like they're not asking them for a reason; they're asking me for a reason. So, like, instead of saying no, I'm not doing that, you should go ask them while they're here, and just give them what they want. And like the etiquette does change. It goes from being a sponge to helping the sponges over time, So I couldn't even imagine, like, I've avoided WWE my entire career, so I couldn't even imagine just how it changes again, once you're on major TV, and I'm happy that I am one of those examples where you don't really need to be on TV every day to make some money doing this and to get some notoriety doing this, especially in different countries. Because if people forget, like, there's way more wrestling than there is outside of the US, especially in the UK. I couldn't even go. I checked out London for a day, and I got spotted a couple of times in Blackpool and things like that. And I was just like, they're like, get your butt back in the Tower Circus, because if they see you out there, they're not gonna buy tickets. They already saw you. So it was weird to me. I'm never gonna cope with being, me, I guess. So
How is it differed? Obviously, you've been booked in the UK.
Yeah.
How does the crowd differ to the US crowd?
Oh, big time. Yeah, no, big time, because it's the UK, especially. They're super rowdy. It's like either the show is in a pub or next to a pub, or the show is a pub. The UK is one of those weird places where they're super rowdy. They know what they want. The harder you hit a guy, the harder the crowd gets. Crazier the crowd gets. But the more chain wrestling you do, the crisper your things are, the crazier the crowd gets. It's one of those weird crowds, but it's also like, in their own right, you have there's a UK scene and there's a UK style in its own right, because it's totally different to everything. Japan, it's very quiet, but people call them respectful. It's not that they're respectful. They're very focused on the wrestling, and they don't want to miss anything. No one's on their phones. No one's getting drunk. It's a time to something they actually enjoy to fully watch and understand. So it's not like they're quiet because they're trying to be respectful. They're quiet because they're focused on you. So you have to be very, very good. You got to really be on your P's and Q's, that night especially. So, and then Australia they're kind of like the UK, but they're some of the best trash talkers I've ever met in Australia. And then, Puerto Rico is another, oh man, it's just insane. It's insane. I was telling you about my grandmother taking her shoe off and throwing it at the TV. Well, they do that in person. And the craziest thing I know I've heard like, the craziest thing I've seen thrown, and I thank God I was a babyface. The craziest thing I've ever seen thrown was a 9-volt battery at somebody. And that's a pretty thick, battery. So I've heard like melons and cups of piss, and, they put the tarps over you when you come out because people would pour that stuff on you. So Puerto Rico's insane, but it's great. It's an awesome place to learn and go and yeah, but don't go out too late. It's also pretty scary in certain parts at night. So, but the crowds definitely differ. I think it's what keeps it, it keeps it fun. It keeps you wanting to be better and learn new things. Is for the fans, at least for me. That's my perspective on it. Is I want to learn new things and bring new things to the table for the fans. There's nothing wrong with being that 5 moves of doom wrestler that does 5 great things, and you're really, really good at 5 things. But I've always, wanted to be very crisp and also bring that character to those fans. So either they love me or they hate me.
You're well traveled, Franco. All them places you've been, man. Incredible. That's incredible, man. Fair play.
Yeah, it was my number one goal. Like I said, a lot of people want to do WWE. A lot of people want to do, be on TV every day. I didn't really want to do the whole 300 days a year thing. I'd rather work a good solid 150 maybe days a year. But I get to do tours, and then next year, hopefully, with it was canceled this year. It should have been 2020, but India with the CWE, yeah. So hopefully that doesn't, with restrictions and everything being safe and all that. Hopefully nothing gets canceled this time around. But that was definitely on my number, almost number one place to go wrestle, because that's another place where you're talking 7,500 people at a regular show. So that's not even their version of WrestleMania. Their WrestleMania is like 17, I think it was 20,000 people damn near. So for an independent wrestling show. Man. It's huge.
What they're doing, drawing them numbers. I know it's a huge country, but it's the eyes on you when you get there.
Yeah.
How many people are going to see you over there? It's like population of 1 billion people. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. I got very heartbroken when I got emailed the marketing materials for it, and then it was canceled. I was like, oh no, that stuff. I still like, I want to print it out and still like cherish that. Like, oh, this almost happened, but I'm also holding out hope for 2021 for it to actually go through and for me to actually go over there and wrestle and help train with the school, because Great Khali's got this huge school and he's got this huge following over there. So yeah, hopefully that it does happen. But of course, I wouldn't do it if it wasn't safe to go, and it wasn't safe for the fans to come out and everybody to make a profit and have fun doing it. So
just to go back to the shows in the UK, which guys that you've been on shows with, UK guys now, have you been impressed with? I'd like to know Franco's guys that stood out. Franco's UK guys, we'll call this a little bit.
Yeah, Franco's UK guys. So Yeston Reese, love the guy. Very, very good. He, I think, is just like an action figure in real life. So of course, there's Yeston Reese, there's Rampage Brown, one of very, 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 very good. And I just heard he actually finally did go sign with WWE. So there goes that. I don't know if I'll get the opportunity to work with him this coming tour in March. I don't know how his things will go, but that would be one of those matches where I've been told you and Rampage, let's get that match, and if the promoters are excited, the fans are excited, so it'd be a letdown, but I'm happy for him, and eventually, the guy's been doing it 20 years, eventually he's got to get paid. Of course, gosh, I mean, there's Joey Hayes. Love Joey. Mm-hmm. Very, very good. Another veteran, huge in the scene. I can't wait to see him finally, sign and get paid and get those big bucks over there. Bruce Wheeler. Love me some Bruce. He's a little, newer in the business. Big T Justice. Awesome guy. Doesn't get the credit that he deserves. The guy's 7 foot tall. I mean, you can't teach that. You know what I'm saying? And then, man, I mean, there's so many really, really, really good ones. On the female side, of course, there's Nightshade. She's very good. Of course, the Sheik El Sham. How could I almost forget Sheik El Sham? Very, very impressed with him. He actually screwed me over in the Road to Glory if you watched it on TV. So a lot of people are expecting me to, I'm coming.
You owe him one.
Yeah, definitely owe him a little more than one. One to the face. but yeah, no, the UK. I was very impressed with the UK guys when I was over there, and they're very, very accommodating. I love the PCW was awesome to me. And then Title and Progress and all these other promotions. Rev Pro, so there's a ton that I'm excited to work with and in the future. And of course, the PCW fans have been yelling and screaming since I got on that plane for me to come back. So we're finally doing it.
That's cool, man. I want to go back to when you were watching wrestling with your grandmother.
Yeah.
What were some of the standout moments for you as a child with wrestling? Hiya, man.
Yeah, I think, stand out. I think how she reacted to guys like Hogan and, the American stuff, like the WWF stuff, and then how that was different to the more local stuff, the WWC stuff. I think that we all, just like my grandmother, have a little more of a connection to our local independent stuff than we would like the national WWF stuff. And it's hard to keep a connection on a national stage with people. But I think, yeah, her Tito Santanas and her, you know, she loved certain guys. She loved the big long hair, muscly guys. And she was a huge, you know, babyface fan. She loved her baby faces. So, yeah, that made me really, really want to be a babyface in the beginning. And I was kind of told, like, you have a babyface face. So I wanted, after actually being in the business a year, I was like, man, I really want to be a heel. Like, the bad guys have so much more fun. But I had a babyface face for a long time. But of what I want my character, I want my brand of wrestling. That's how I go into every match is, okay, how do we get a reaction? How do we get these people to remember who we are after the match? If you go home and you're thinking, man, I really hate that Franco Varga guy, I can't wait to come back and see him get his face punched in, then I did my job. And that's kind of my aim for every match is, yeah, come back and watch me get my butt kicked, please. So.
Which guys do you think didn't get to the level they should have done when you were watching it when you were younger? Guys that should have achieved that didn't?
Yeah, I think, you know, personally, I thought Vader should have been a bigger name than he was. I think, you know, a lot of things, the politics in the business kind of, you know, and then Bam Bam Bigelow, another one. I think the guys like Tito Santana should have had bigger runs. Mm-hmm. But of course, you're dealing with mega stars like Hogan. You know, Tito was still kind of relevant when the Attitude Era kind of came around, so that hurt him. You know, because now you're talking Austin, Rock, Jericho, Cena, Kurt Angle. I mean, there's and the world is changing. So you know, the world changes every 5 years as far as the attitude. So the death of the babyface happened right around that Attitude Era. Everyone was a heel that was kind of working towards either a good goal or a bad goal. So the goals became what turned you a babyface or a heel in the normal like nature of things. But everyone kind of had that attitude and had a heelish, you know, attitude. So that's what started drawing people. So you couldn't just go out there and shake your fist and be just a really nice guy anymore. So that hurt a lot of people. I think, of course, you know, Bret Hart, I think, is probably technically one of the best to ever do it. Literally, he tells you, right? But I think he should have been, you know, if it wasn't for, again, a lot of things and WCW and all that, I think he would have been top, like, not just in Canada, I'm talking about in the world. Like, he would have been the guy. He would have surpassed Hogan. He would have surpassed Flair as far as in the business itself goes. So, yeah, a lot of guys should have had, you know, bigger runs than they did, but there were some really, really big shadows you know, casted by guys like Hogan and Cena, Orton, Austin, Rock, Jericho, you know, so yeah, I still think that those guys should have, you know, there's a ton of examples. I personally, a lot of people don't know this, I'm a huge Steve Blackman fan, just because I felt like a guy like Steve Blackman, who didn't have a ton of experience in the beginning, he picked it up very, very fast, just like a guy like Kurt Angle did. And he could kick your face off, clean off if you wanted to. But he had he learned the pro wrestling so fast that he became like, you know, a very good mid-level card kind of guy. So I loved Steve Blackman. I loved the stuff they did with him. But in the long run, I mean, he was like our wrestling version of Steven Seagal. And Steven Seagal is like one of those things that became a joke over time. So then Steve Blackman kind of faded out too. So I always felt like Steve Blackman was one of those guys that should have had a bigger push and, you know, taken a little more legitimately. Like today, we watched that Bloodsport and all these other, you know, shoot style wrestling things come around, and if Steve Blackman was, you know, in his prime now, he would be making a killing. So and that's another match that people throw around, you know, it's like Franco Varga versus Steve Blackman. Like as long as it's a wrestling match, I'm okay with it. I don't think I would take Steve Blackman on in any karate aspect. Or no way, no thanks. but if it's in a wrestling match, I'd love to.
That's a good. You've encompassed a lot of guys there. No, it's cool. Good answer. Who do you think got there that you didn't expect to get there? Who exceeded your expectations? Maybe as from a fan when you were a fan, and got the Holy Grail.
Yeah, I think I wasn't. I always say I wasn't a huge fan of the whole Stone Cold Steve Austin thing. I never really believed it. It was kind of hokey to me. And after a while, I was just like, man, like everyone has a Stone Cold 316 shirt at school. I'm just like, this guy's really popular. And I'm just like, I thought the Nation or these other things that are like, you can tell is, I love the super dramatic, super scripted portion of wrestling, the dramatic stuff, the sports entertainment portion of it. I love that stuff. But the actual Stone Cold stuff, I was like, okay, he's beating up his boss. Like, how realistic is that? Like after a while, I was just like, okay, like that was cool, but no, he became a mega star, and he kind of won me over too, and I wasn't a huge fan of his. So, he's one of the ones that I know it's a little surprising, but I thought that would fizzle out,
Cool. What about tag wrestling, Franco? Because you've touched upon singles. Who were some of your favorite tag teams back in the days?
Yeah, Rock and Roll Express. I'm a little biased, but yeah, I love those guys, and the Midnight Express, on the heel side, and then of course, the Nation as a tag team, any version of that, the Freebirds, and then the newer age stuff. I do like the Young Bucks. I love what they bring to wrestling. People say they damage wrestling, and I don't think so. I just think they people tend to label things, and that kind of is what hurts wrestling. Is like, as long as we don't try to label things, wrestling is wrestling, So, but yeah, the Young Bucks, the Hardy Boys. I mean, there's been so many really good ones. The Steiner Brothers. I'm a huge fan of the Steiner Brothers. So yeah, tag team wrestling, I don't think is for me personally, but I think we definitely need it in wrestling. And when it's done right, it's some of the biggest draws in wrestling. So yeah.
What are your thoughts on promotions who've ran since COVID with no one in the stands? I know talent have come in, and then AEW, slowly but surely, you're getting fans, aren't you, placed like far away from one another. What are your feelings about promotions still running shows through COVID and the pandemic?
Yeah, I thought that WWE was going to exploit their connections to continue to run, because they have to. They're a $1 billion corporation, right? So you can't just stop doing shows. And them having the means to do it, I felt, okay, maybe, I didn't look too harshly on it, because they were being safe and they had their own building, and but with AEW, the same kind of thing. They had their own building and all that. It was more the independence that I felt like needed to stop. Mm-hmm. They needed to stop, and people will, like I said, the connection, people will be a little less harsh on the national product than they are going to be on the independent product. And it just hurts me inside to see a really, really good card put on in the backyard just because they want to wrestle. Like, just wait. If the background is trees, I already check out, I don't watch it. So I just think like a lot of really, really good matches happened during COVID, and they shouldn't have. We should have just waited. So that was, I think, this thing on the independent level, we should have just waited. Everything else, WrestleMania, I mean, there's nothing else on TV. So people may call Vince horrible and all that, but he's also giving you something in a risky time. He's giving you something to watch and something to care about, even if it's weird and there were no fans there. And Drew McIntyre probably had the most heartbreaking WrestleMania title win.
Absolutely.
Because there was nobody there to celebrate it, So, but at the same time, he could have just said, we're packing it in and going home. And then there'd be nothing. What were we supposed to do? Watch old wrestling? I don't.
I was gutted. I was gutted he lost the belt to Orton. I know it was the third match, and it would have canned Orton if he'd lost 3, in a row. But
Right.
I know they need the people in the stands for Drew to make it a bit more legitimate, the run, and maybe he'll get it back. But yeah. Well, I don't specifically think Orton needed the belt again, personally. And
I mean, he does great work, and he's again, I don't know, he just starts. It feels like he cares again. You know, I don't know if it's because it's Drew or because he knows he's getting to those twilight years. You know, but it feels like that Randy Orton that used to care a lot like before. So I think this is a perfect time to put it on Orton and to build up a new guy.
What do you think of Drew as a wrestler to wrestler, about what he puts together and how he does it? Well, what stands out for you with Drew? Because I look at it from a fan perspective, so it'd be cool to see from a wrestler's perspective what it is that makes Drew the man he is now since coming back in 2017.
Yeah, no, I met him when, I think it was Australia. It's either Australia or I'm pretty sure it's Australia. I met him when he like just first got like released and all that. And what stands out to me as a wrestler is his body. He just completely changed his body. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Jinder Mahal. They just completely turned their bodies around and just look like completely different people, you know? So that's one of the hardest things, where when you finally do get some time off, like the pandemic and all that, like it's the perfect time to rehab your body or take care of things that are hurting every day and you know, change. So yeah, I applaud that. He definitely took the time to look like a champion. So yeah, he definitely gained a lot of size over the time. So I'd say that. I mean, he's always been a great worker. He's always been a great in the ring, but his body, he definitely leaps and bounds as far as the changes.
Be cool to see where they take him storyline wise now and what he's going to be doing. I find now, you know, how long is he not going to have the belt for?
Yeah, no, I think other than Roman Reigns, he's definitely the guy to watch. Mm-hmm. I think so.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Franco, in terms of bookings nationally for you, and then we'll talk about what you had coming up in the UK. How is it for bookings for yourself? Have you got anything coming up?
No, I'm the current heavyweight champion at the School of Morton. We draw about 100,000 concurrent viewers a week every Sunday. So it's a good place to be. Yeah. And they've, you know, those guys, production and all that, they'll tell you specifically, like they were in the 40s, 50s. And then I jumped on board and they've hit as high as 100,000. So, wow. You know, pat on the back a little bit.
Absolutely.
But, you know, I think that I've earned the right to, now they have like viewers from all over the world, where before they had a lot of local viewership and all that. So I think that's always what I will bring to the table, and I understand that portion of the business, where I did a lot of work overseas, so I can bring that to any promotion. But as far as nationally, I'm just not really interested in anything right now. I think I had a lot of projects, personal projects that I was finally getting around to, like you know, the house and selling the house and all that. So I was very distracted during the pandemic, so it's good. So I didn't really sit around too much. And then as far as a national product, no, I don't think. I've been told, I know there's interest, but I just don't think there's interest on my end right now. And then I just don't want to be tied down. And I have a lot of things coming up, like the UK tour in March, in India in the summer. And those are things that I'm just not willing to give up right now. Is
that Tidal within the UK, or have you got other promotions on that tour in March?
Yeah, so we can't. Okay, so I can't really like officially, you know. No. But the UK one that kind of kicks off that tour is Tidal. Yeah.
Sweet. That's cool, man.
Tidal's a great promotion, especially in the UK. But all over the world, people know Tidal. So.
Franco Varga, can you please plug your social media where we can find you? And
I try to keep it super simple, no numbers, none of that. So it's just one word, at Franco Wrestles, all over Twitter, Facebook, even TikTok. Can you believe it? I got a TikTok. So yeah. So at Franco Wrestles on all of them. And then FrancoVarga.com takes you to all the links on all of my social media. So just make it super simple.
Sweet, man. My guest on Stu's Wrestling Podcast today, all the way from New York City, Mr. Franco Varga. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Flying the flag for the UK from rugby, this is Evade Escape
with their single, Already Know.
This episode is brought to you in association with Powered 4 TV, so go and check them out for anything wrestling related, old events, new events when we come out of COVID, podcasts, you name it, it's all there at Powered 4 TV, so find them across social media.